Are you leaving on time today? I looked up and saw my boss, Barry Masters, looking into my office. He smiled his usual damp smile that he always wore on those evenings when he came to my house for dinner. He liked to rub my nose in the fact that he would sleep with my wife. Perhaps we should start from the beginning. My name is Bill Yakswensky, pronounced Jackswinski. Most people know me as Billy Jack or just Jacko. I'm 35 years old and an advertising executive at a small, no-good advertising agency in Houston, Texas. Being an advertising executive at one of the big agencies in New York or Los Angeles would mean wielding a lot of power and responsibility, not to mention money and respect. In BM and Sons, that just means I do everything while Barry sits on his fat ass reading those terrible body ripper novels. As if it weren't enough that he reads these books intended for lonely and bored housewives. Here is this idiot hanging out in my office, asking if I will leave on time when he knows perfectly well that I will leave. Since he hired Amy, an intern with great breasts and ass, leaving the office on time has not been a problem. But since today was the evening, I told him that I had a few things to finish and that I would leave in half an hour. Okay, I'll go eat at the Royal Fork, but I expect you and Lynn to be ready when I get there. And Jacko, I mean ready. Ready meant Lynn would be naked, and I would be in my chastity device. I know most men wouldn't consider me a real man, but I do what I have to do to survive. I met my wife Lynn 10 years ago at a Christmas party thrown by a local bank. They were Barry's biggest client, and it was their dedication that kept our agency afloat. Since I was mainly handling their account, I was invited to the party too. Lynn worked as a cashier in their drive-through branch. I spent the evening chatting with some of the staff I knew from work. I was talking to the manager of the lending department about a planned golf trip that was scheduled to take place shortly after Christmas. It looks like his regular partner was going through a tough divorce and was even attacked by his own sticks. Since Barry was closing our office from Christmas Eve until New Year's, I agreed to play. While I was discussing golf with a group about to play in a tournament, I began to notice that several women were gravitating towards our small gathering. We were discussing our handicaps when one well-developed blonde entered the conversation. "Hey, Bob, why weren't any of the cashiers invited to this tournament?" She was wearing the talk of the town little black dress. Her bust really tested the strength of his bra, and my eyes locked on it like a hawk on a field mouse. I almost didn't realize that she was speaking directly to me when she asked, "What's your handicap?" I'm not a neurosurgeon. I'm also no expert on the functions of the human brain, so I can't explain why the only word that came out of my mouth in response to her question about golf was nice breasts. Laughter came from all sides. I felt my face turn red. "This is funny," someone said. "Damn, why can't I come up with original answers like this?" someone else asked. The girl in the black cocktail dress and high heels laughed and then said, "Well, apparently you'll be spending all day in traps." Luckily, I had the sense to play it off as a joke. I seriously doubt I'll spend the whole day in the traps. Not many zero-handicap golfers do that. "Wow, are you considered a zero-handicap player?" asked Bob. "No, but it sounded good." This caused another burst of laughter. I didn't tell them that I was close to getting into Q school before Barry hired me. The conversation turned back to golf, and I felt relieved that I hadn't completely embarrassed myself. Barry probably wouldn't like it. Soon the group dispersed in different directions, and I found myself back at the bar. "Would you like to buy my boobs a drink?" I turned around and saw in front of me the blue eyes of the owner of the little black dress. "No, but I will buy their owner a drink as an apology for my Freudian slip." She laughed, and we continued talking for the rest of the evening. When the party ended, she kissed me goodbye and headed to her car. "See you on the golf course, sir. Wait until you see what I'm wearing." I gulped, imagining her in tight shorts or a miniskirt, bending over to retrieve the ball from the hole. If her ass is anything like her tits, the golf game might be better than an adult movie, I thought to myself as I waved her goodbye. I'm guessing Barry and his wife Joan had sex with just about anyone. The only reason they went to these events was to find new sex partners. I doubt they ever had sex with each other, and I had my doubts that Barry really was the father of all his sons, who were never seen. In my first month working for Barry, Joan made indecent proposals to me 4 times. Eventually, my morals and fear of being fired took over, and I never agreed to Joan's suggestions. Truth be told, I probably also avoided a few STDs. On Wednesday morning, I arrived at the golf club and found a group from the bank. The day was cold and wet, so I was sure everyone would be wearing long pants rather than shorts. Since I was born and raised in Wyoming, I wore shorts 90% of the time, except at work, of course. Half the people from the party didn't show up. They were trying to figure out how to separate 13 people when I approached. "Billy, glad you came," Bob said as he greeted me. "We thought we'd have 5 or 6 fours, but as you can see, we're not enough. Would you mind playing with the two of us?" I told him I didn't mind playing together. I was deeply disappointed that Lynn was not present. I was told that I would be paired with Jerry Montes, a member of the commercial lending department. But when the top 4 didn't show up at the appointed time, Bob asked Jerry to join them. My new partner still had not arrived when the second group was ready to leave. Just as Bob was trying to decide what to do, he exclaimed, "Okay, here's your partner, Billy. Try not to get stuck in the traps." As the group started laughing, I turned around and saw my partner approaching. "Sorry, got stuck buying a tea." I turned around and saw Lynn in front of me. She was wearing a purple fleece top and heavy knit yoga pants. While the top hid any hint of cleavage, the pants definitely showed off her curves. "Where is everyone?" she asked. "The first group is probably on the green," Bob said. "Do you mind playing together with Billy here?" She winked at me. "Only if he brought money." "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. We bet on everything. Usually in a foursome, we bet on drinks, tricks, or whatever else someone is willing to bet on. A lot of hits cost a person drinks on the break," Bob explained. "I hope you brought enough money, Billy," she said. I said nothing. Bob laughed as he approached the launch pad. He made a decent putt, and then the foursome headed down the fairway. Lynn and I walked up to the launch pad. "Ladies first," I said as she leaned over to tee up. I admired the shape of her ass as she bent over to prepare for the blow. "Stop staring at my ass, you pervert. Crap. Are her eyes on the top of her head? I wasn't even looking in your direction. I was watching your colleague running around in the bushes down there," I said, pointing in the direction of a guy who was swinging a putter erratically in the long grass about 100 yards away. "Oh," she said, "I didn't mean that you were a pervert. I just thought—" "Yes, you thought I was staring at your delicious ass, I understand." She gasped. "Oh, so you were looking after all. I'll keep you in my eyes, buddy." "Okay," I laughed. "I think you can start your putt. They're already on the green." She made the putt and sent the ball 170 yards, then turned to me with a grin. "Try to top that, Mr. Nice Breasts." I walked up to the black tee and placed my ball and tee. "What will I get if I do this?" I asked. "If you beat me out of here, I'll play the second half in my tight white shorts and tank top," she said, wagging her butt. I felt myself getting aroused and had to fight it. I've never played golf with excitement, so I didn't know how it would affect my swing. I took a deep breath and aimed at the ball. Then she started cheating. While I was getting ready, she made comments about my ass. She then said that she would make me play the other half in my underwear. Luckily, I was able to ignore it and hit a 280-yard putt that sailed around the dogleg and stopped 50 yards from the green. I turned around and said, "I know your ass will look fantastic in these shorts." All she could say was, "Damn." Needless to say, I loved watching her play golf in her tight white shorts and tank top. I also didn't pay for our first 3 dates. 3 months later, we became an exclusive couple. I learned soon enough that she thought Barry was a jerk. When we finished dinner, she asked if there were any women in my office. Thinking she was worried that my eye might be wandering, I told her that the only woman was Jane, a 65-year-old grandmother who mostly answered the phone and made coffee. I bet that creep is still looking at her cleavage, Lynn said and laughed. I laughed as I imagined Barry looking at Jane's breasts. I imagined her slapping him with her large bag that she carried with her everywhere. I met Lynn's parents at Thanksgiving. They flew in from San Diego and spent a week with her. I met them on Thanksgiving morning and we all ate dinner together, which she and her mother prepared. After dinner, I offered to bring her a piece of pie. Instead, I came back from the kitchen with the ring on the pie plate and proposed to her. George Carlin once observed that people don't seem to have much sex on Thanksgiving. He definitely wasn't there that Thanksgiving. As soon as Lynn's parents returned to their hotel, she began picking my brains. We were married on a boat in Galveston the following May. My parents bought me a house in a prestigious area of Pasadena as a pre-wedding gift. So if you find yourself in divorce proceedings, you'll still have a roof over your head, son, my father said wisely as he handed me the keys. I told them that divorce was not in my future, but thanked them for their foresight. Lynn and I moved after our honeymoon and settled into a new place. For the first 4 years of our marriage, I couldn't complain about our sex life. However, other aspects of our lives left much to be desired. When Lynn and I started dating, she was struggling to make ends meet. I assumed it was because she didn't earn much as a bank teller. As they say, assumptions make fools of us. I let Lynn manage our finances for the first 6 months of our marriage. I thought that since she worked in a bank, she would be good with money. I was wrong. It took a year and a half to get us back to financial balance. I have consistently paid service cutoff notices rather than utility bills. We had several long conversations and quite a few arguments. I even spent a few nights on the couch. Eventually, our raises and my financial literacy allowed us to save a decent amount, but it didn't last long. Within 2 years, we were again in a difficult situation. Her salary paid off most of her credit cards. My salary went towards everything else. Barry was paying me too little, so I was preparing to circulate my resume in hopes of getting a better salary, but I knew that most reputable agencies didn't value a little experience. The week when everything went to hell started as usual. After paying the bills, I was able to buy groceries for the week and fill up our gas tanks. I even managed to put a few dollars aside for unexpected expenses. Monday morning's work went fairly normally until Barry called Walt into his office. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I could hear Walt's voice getting louder. After a few minutes, they started shouting at each other. The only thing I actually heard was Walter telling Barry that Marion and Joan were useless bitches. I have no idea who Marion is, but Barry seemed cool with his wife being called a bitch, probably because it was true. When Walt left Barry's office, he walked straight to my desk. As soon as he started to approach me, Barry told Jane to call the police. Walt came over to my desk and said, "You better watch yourself, Jacko." I was about to ask Walt what the hell I did to him when Barry yelled at him to leave or he'd sue. Walt looked at him and shouted, "Fuck you, you useless bastard," as he walked out the door. "You better take care of yourself, Jacko." Walt's words kept running through my head all day, so much so that I became engrossed in them and nearly died under the wheels of a fast-moving truck as I pulled out of the highway into a driveway. I'm grateful his brakes worked better than my brain, otherwise I would have become a statistic. When I got home, the first thing that caught my eye was that Lynn was already home. She usually worked until 7. I walked into the house and found her relaxing on the new white couch. This sofa was not in my living room this morning when I left for work, as well as the matching love chair and armchairs. "Hello, honey," she said. "Do you like it? I took the day off today and went shopping at that new furniture store in the Galleria. I fell in love with this set and bought it on the spot. Aren't you angry, dear? Were they free?" She snorted, "Sort of. I got a good deal by opening a new store account. We will have good payments." I could only smile. I knew that if I opened my mouth, a stream of vulgarities would fly out of it, and we would spend the whole night quarreling. Instead, I smiled and went on the day to figure out how badly she had arranged everything. After I figured everything out, I realized that I had no opportunity to move to a job with a lower salary. I didn't like the idea of having to grovel before Barry. The only good thing was that after Lynn bought something like this, I had sex. Perhaps I could take advantage of this. After dinner, we were sitting on her expensive purchase, watching TV when I started making my moves. I started kissing her earlobes and was trying to put my hand under her skirt when she stopped me mid-sentence. Love, we won't do anything on this couch, but if you take me to bed, you can take me there." She must have been a mind reader. I was completely exhausted when I showed up at work the next morning. I was sure she would take the day off or be late for work. She usually did this after a night full of sex like that one. I was tired, but a few cups of coffee had me working at full capacity when Barry arrived at work that day. He gave me a strange look as he walked into his office. I never really paid much attention to Barry, so the look didn't mean anything to me. 10 minutes later, a very attractive young woman entered the office. Jane met her. "How can I help you, miss?" "Oh, yes. I'm Amy Stewart, and I have a meeting at 9 o'clock with Mr. Barry Masters." Jane picked up the phone and spoke. She then hung up and said, "You can go, Miss Stewart," pointing toward Barry's office. Later, I called Lynn. As I thought, she was at home. "You didn't go to work, baby?" I asked. I was a little annoyed, but also a little proud. "I called and said I would be late," she replied. "Someone bored me last night. Is that someone ready to tire me again tonight?" "You know what, yes," I replied. After a few minutes of talking, we hung up. I was setting up an advertisement when Barry came out with a young lady on his arm. "Amy, this is Jacko. We call him that because his real name is too hard to pronounce. Jacko, this is Amy. She will take Walt's place and watch over you for the next few days." With that, he turned and returned to his office. "Bill Yaswinski, but please call me Jacko." "Amy Stewart," she replied, holding out her hand to me. I had a crazy desire to kiss her hand, like in the movies. "Can I call you Bill?" I told her that of course she could, and we got down to business for the day. I showed her the ropes and tried damn hard not to stare at her. Her scent was intoxicating. Of course, I wasn't particularly surprised that Barry kept sticking his nose out and sticking his nose in. At first, I was afraid that Barry hired Amy because she was pretty. She soon proved that she was quite an intelligent woman who was well versed in the advertising business. I was curious as to why she ended up with a backwater agency like Barry's when she could have easily become a star on Madison Avenue. That night, I made love to Lynn again. The next morning, I came to work with a clear head. Just before noon, Barry called me into his office. I could tell he was mad, but I had no idea why. "You screwed up, Jacko." "Did I screw up? Like what?" He pulled out an ad I was working on for a car dealership and showed it to me. It said there would be a $500 lottery. I remembered this advertisement well. When he showed me the ad, it said it was a $5,000 giveaway. Alan, the car dealership owner, was furious and threatened to take away his account. I calmed him down and we're already printing the corrected ad. "I should have fired you on the spot, Jacko, but I have a better idea. I want to meet you and Lynn at your house tonight for dinner. By the way, I like fish. I want to discuss this with you before I decide what to do with you. I'll be there at 18. I had no idea why this asshole wanted to involve my wife, but I knew she hated him and would probably do whatever it took to piss him off. I didn't think much of it as the day went on. "What does this idiot want from me?" Lynn asked when I told her about my mistake and Barry's idea. "That old pervert probably just wants to stare at your breasts tonight, or wants us to join their sex party. I'll cut something off between your legs before I let you have sex with Joan Masters, mate. And I'm sure if I ever saw Barry naked, I'd want to poke my eyes out with a rusty spoon," she said, shuddering. Dinner was good. I was a little annoyed that Barry kept staring at my wife. I noticed that she was trying to move in such a way as not to give him a good view of her body. She even wore a turtleneck sweater despite the late spring warmth. Once dinner was over, Barry said, "Okay, we had a great dinner." He looked at Lynn. "Very tasty dinner, honey." She blushed slightly and thanked him. He cracked his knuckles and said, I don't know if you know, Lynn, but your husband almost cost me a huge account today. I had to hold back my laughter. Lynn and I often talked about how Barry considered himself the king of Madison Avenue when he ran such a small agency. I see no reason to punish him if the situation has been corrected. Because, honey, he needs to learn to not be distracted by the new young lady in the office and concentrate on his work. Lynn glanced at me as I frowned at Barry's words. He knew that I had never been anything other than a professional. I told Lynn about Amy too. I may have downplayed her attraction a little, but Lynn knew I wasn't interested. What do you suggest we do to teach him, Barry? I suggest we have sex right in front of him. I was stunned. My head was screaming that I had to get up and beat Barry to a pulp, whether I needed the job or not. Lynn looked like she had just been offered a bucket of pig shit to eat. I almost laughed at her disgust. However, Barry didn't seem to notice. "That's a great offer, Barry," she said in a soothing tone. I instantly remembered how stupid it was that she would ever agree. I knew she would reject his proposal. "There are two problems with your proposal," she continued. "First of all, I'm sure that my husband will divorce me in the blink of an eye if I even think about it. Secondly, I look only at him. Let's forgive and forget and move on with our lives." "He won't divorce you, Lynn. Most men fantasize about watching their wife have sex with another man." "Not me," I interjected, but Barry continued with equanimity, as if I wasn't even in the room. "If he divorces you, honey, he'll pay for you to live in this house until you decide to marry someone else, and then you'll get half the price. If he divorces, I'll fire him, and it will be difficult for him to pay the large alimony that you are entitled to. You are holding him hostage, my lady." "Listen, Barry," she said. "I love him, and I know he loves me. Why would I want to hurt him?" "You won't hurt him. You'll just take control." She looked unsure, so he continued. "Are you telling me, Lynn, that you like asking him for permission to go out with your friends? Do you have to justify buying something nice for yourself? Aren't you ready to make him crawl in front of you?" "Lynn, what I'm proposing will give you absolute control over him. All you have to do is tell me he doesn't hold the line, and I'll destroy him. I can make sure he never works in advertising again. And he'll have to work multiple jobs to stay out of jail. Not to mention, it will improve your sex life by an order of magnitude. Think about it, Lynn. You could have sex anytime you want, but you could. Sex with any guy you want. Jacko will eventually realize that his love for you is deeper than just sex. He will be happy to see you fulfill all your fantasies. And when you let him enjoy your body, he will. Grateful that he will try to please you as much as possible. You can't lose, Lynn." He's crazy, I thought, or stupid. I wondered what exact words my wife would use to reject him. I was sure he would fire me after she told him off, but it was worth it. I would also track him down one night, ring his doorbell, and beat him up. The biggest surprise of my life was when she said, "What are we waiting for?" I just sat there in shock. I kept waiting for her to start laughing and tell him he was caught. Usually when she did this to me, she would use the old term and say, "Just kidding." Even when they started to take off their clothes, I expected her to stop the joke. Finally, I got angry and grabbed Barry by the scruff of his neck, starting to push him out of my house. He was talking about firing me and suing me for assault when Lynn screamed from behind, "Damn it, Bill, stop right now." "What? You can't be serious, Lynn. I know you can't stand that bastard." "I'm serious, Bill. You almost ruined his business, and he's not going to fire you, so it's the least I can do. You better stop this stupid bullshit right now, or I'll." "What? Divorce me? Okay, we'll get divorced, and then you'll languish in a low-paying job trying to keep my standard of living high enough to stay out of jail." "And I'll put you in prison for touching me," Barry intervened. "I was going to make this easy for you, but now you have to come in here and take a look." "I'll fucking kill." "You won't do anything. You'll just sit back and take it. You have no other choice. Cuckold or prison. Come on, Lynn. Let me show you how a real man treats a woman." I wish I could say Lynn came to her senses and threw Barry out on the street. I really wouldn't like to tell you how much she actually enjoyed it when they had sex. When all was said and done, Barry left, telling me to be at work on time in the morning. If I had no money, I would have bought a gun that night and sent 2 specific people to meet Jesus. Lynn left the bedroom a little after Barry left. I was sitting on a new expensive sofa. You can stop frowning, Bill. That's all for today. Let's go to bed. Screw it. I'll never sleep in that bed again. I'll sleep on the couch. I'm glad Barry didn't turn you on. Listen, I'm sorry, Bill, but I don't know. He was talking about all this power, and it turned me on beyond belief. I think he's a disgusting pig, but he turned me on so much that I was ready to explode. Yeah, the way you egged him on and told him how great he was at sex really made you sound disgusted. And telling him he was better than me, it was so off topic. Yes, I loved it. Having power and humiliating you was a big turn on for me. Seeing you humble and helpless turned me on. Even talking about it makes me horny. Let's make love, baby. I need it. I won't tell Barry. Go to hell, available girl. I can't even look at you without feeling betrayed, angry, and disgusted. No, thank you. Come on, Bill. I'm sure Barry won't keep this up for too long. One time was too many. I'm only still here because I'm between a rock and a hard place. I'm still here because I have no choice, I said, trying not to cry in front of her. You humiliated me. Now I have to look at that bastard every day, knowing that he thinks he is better than me in bed. I have to put up with the fact that he took the most precious thing I had in this world. I lay down on the sofa and threw my arm over my eyes. I heard her go into the bedroom. I couldn't even think clearly. I knew there had to be a way out of my predicament, but I couldn't see it. I came to work early and tried to focus on the tasks. I was doing well until Barry came and gave me a mocking smile. I had to do my best not to walk up and smash his smug face. I didn't know exactly how I was going to handle this whole situation, but the pieces of a plan were starting to come together. After doing a little research online, I knew what steps I needed to take first. I needed to leave work early. This shouldn't have been a problem. I also needed Lynn to be at work. She probably was, because Barry probably didn't tire her out. I spent most of the morning on the internet searching for what I needed to turn things around in our house. I'll lose my job, but I won't lose my house. I found a few places in Houston where I could get what I was looking for. Around noon, I walked into Barry's office and told him I was leaving. I didn't say you could leave early, he said. Yes, you did. I made this appointment 3 weeks ago and told you about it then. I confirmed it with you long before I made the appointment. I lied through my teeth, but Barry never remembered anything. Jane used to persuade him to take 3 weeks off every year. He stared stupidly at the wall for a minute, then said, Okay, yes, I remember. Go, but you better be home when I come tonight. What? No one said. Jacko, this was arranged last night. Maybe if you weren't frowning, you'd know it. I'll also have a surprise for you. I know you hate me, but that makes it even sweeter. I don't hate you, Barry, but I can't say I'll make it easy for you if you catch fire. 18s and Jacko, don't be late. Go to hell, I said to myself as I closed the office door. My first stop was the electronics store across town. I bought several mini cameras and microphones. The salesperson at the store explained to me how to install it all. He said they are motion-triggered and send the video to a secure website, so even if someone compromises my computer, the video will be safe. My next stop was the lawyer's office. Paris Hyde was perhaps the most unusual name for a lawyer that I had ever heard, but her reputation for helping men with marital problems was legendary. I told her the whole story and what I did to collect evidence. She confirmed that I did not need to disclose my spying activities because I was the sole owner of my property. She advised me not to take any action until she had everything in place to file a lawsuit. She also said that I would have to go through at least one more session to get evidence to support my allegations. Under Texas law, I could file for divorce on the grounds of cruelty or adultery, and in some cases both of these circumstances could be cited as grounds. She also gave me other avenues to consider. I couldn't wait to laugh in Barry's face. I went home and set up the cameras. I put 3 in the bedroom and 2 in the dining room. I installed the other 2 in the living room. By the time I finished, I had time to move my clothes to my office. I also took a pillow and blanket from the hallway closet. Lynn only bought them because they were on sale. This closet was full of all sorts of nonsense that she bought on impulse. After I put them in the office, I went to the bar. I returned home around 9 p.m. to find Lynn sitting at the table drinking a glass of wine. I didn't say a word to her as I went to take a shower. For the first time since I moved out of my parents' house, I locked the bathroom door. I thought the door shook, but I wasn't sure. I smiled at the thought that I could finally be in control of my life, and that she would soon learn how little control she really had. I was in no hurry to get dressed and immediately went to my office. A few minutes later, the door opened and Lynn walked in. I mentally added, "buy a lock for the office door" to the to-do list. I just logged in to check what evidence my cameras collected while I was away. I quickly rolled down the window as she sat down on the edge of my desk. My heart hurt because she had done this so many times. She would often sit on the corner of my desk to let me know she was horny. Excitement was the last feeling in my body. All I saw was the treacherous traitor on my desk. She didn't say anything. I just sat there looking at a spot on the wall. I looked at her and asked, "What?" "You've never locked me in the bathroom before," she said, her voice choked up. "You've never disgusted me like this before. Are you here to tell me about the great sex you had with Barry?" "It was terrible," she said. "I realized what a pig he is, and I realized that I was mistaken in relation to you." "So you both got pleasure from humiliating me," I said without emotion. "It's no fun without good old Bill." "Oh well." "I thought you loved me," she sobbed. "I loved until you let Barry get between your legs." "Last night was incredible," she said. "All I want is to relive this, and you're a spoiled brat, and you want to rob me of my sexual bliss. It doesn't hurt you, maybe just your ego, but it turns me on so much." At that moment, I realized that she had completely absorbed all of Barry's bullshit. I told her one last time to leave my office and then left the house. I drove around the city aimlessly and ended up in Galveston. Since it was Friday night, I had my choice of bars. I chose one that I had never been to before. Lynn and I went to Galveston often. We'd spend the day at the beach and then close the bar. While I was drinking, Hank Shaw walked into the bar. Hank was working for Barry when I started. He left to work for a local radio station 5 years ago. He saw me and came up to me. "Bill, long time no see." "Hey Hank, how's radio life?" "Can't complain. Are you still with that idiot Barry?" "Unfortunately. Did you hear that Walt left?" "No, I haven't seen Walt in a couple of years. He came to the station and asked me for a job. He said Barry was making his life hell and he needed to leave." "Yes, I understand that. I'm tired of his cheap stuff too. You know, just between you and me, I know Barry scared off a lot of good people. Hell, when I worked for him, he slept with 2 different guys' wives. Can you imagine? What always surprised me is that neither of them beat him up for this." At this point, his company approached, and he took leave to join his friends. The wives of 2 guys. Suddenly, I became suspicious. I decided I needed to talk to Walt. Maybe that day he did not threaten me, but warned me. Before I left the bar, I asked Hank if he knew how to contact Walt. He said he didn't know, and I left. I returned home and collapsed on the sofa. Lynn was nowhere to be seen or heard, and that was to my advantage. I really wanted to talk to Walt, but in a big city like Houston, you just can't go door to door until the right person opens up. As soon as I fell asleep, a solution came to me. Lynn left when I got up Saturday morning. I went to Lowe's and purchased a lock for my office and installed it. I opened the cameras on my computer and checked what they recorded. I saw Lynn and Barry having sex for about 5 minutes. I heard Barry apologize over and over for not being able to please her. She reassured him that everything was fine and said it would be better when I returned. Speaking of Jacko, she told him, I wanted to slap her for calling me that. I put up with it at work because I was paid to do it. I won't tolerate her treating me like that. Speaking of Jacko, let's go easy on him. Let's limit our activities to Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay, Barry said. I'm already busy most nights. I just wanted to make Jacko nervous. Next time, we'll make him wear a surprise. Surprise? I opened all the video files and watched as Barry walked into the house carrying something in his bag. He told her how much he would love to have her on the couch, and she scolded him, saying that no one would ever have sex on her couch. He told her he had brought my surprise, but since they were in such a rush to have sex, he showed her what was in the bag as they hurried down the hallway. I didn't have a camera in the hallway, so the surprise remained unknown. Lustful creatures, I said, upset that I didn't know what was in the bag. I spent the rest of the weekend trying to avoid Lynn. If she was at home, I tried to get out of the house. I spent Sunday evening in my office. She tried to tell me that Barry came by on Saturday night, but the video showed the truth. She sat, drank wine, and had sex with a dildo. Since she didn't have a dildo when the whole Barry thing started, I assumed she bought one that day. While watching the video, I found that she bought a dildo and some lingerie. The good thing about Barry is that he is completely predictable. He leaves work at 5 o'clock every day without exception. He expects the others to stay until 5:30. Jane leaves at 10 minutes after 5, and then everyone else gradually leaves, leaving the office empty by 5:20. On Monday, I found myself alone in the office at 5:30. I walked into Barry's office and opened his computer. I knew his passwords because he made Jane write them down in case he forgot them. I opened the top drawer of her desk and found not only his passwords, but also sticky notes to write them down. Quickly, I logged into Barry's computer and looked through his personal records. I found Walt's address and logged out. I also wrote down Barry's vacation day approval for Wednesday. I also noticed that Jane had booked next week's leave. When I left, it seemed to me that someone was in the office, but I did not see anyone. I quickly looked around and left. On the way back, I stopped at Whataburger. Lynn never liked me eating fast food, so this must have pissed her off so I could eat in my office without being near her. Tuesday went by pretty quickly. That evening, Barry came, and I found out what my surprise was. It was a metal cage designed to cause pain if I felt aroused. It was also intended to prevent me from self-satisfaction. Of course, if they thought that I would suffer from this, they were deeply mistaken. I haven't been horny since this whole Barry thing started. Barry mentioned that he would bring Amy for a threesome. On Wednesday, I went to see Walt. I arrived at the address I found on Barry's computer and rang the doorbell. You could tell that the woman who answered the door was once very attractive. She still might have been, but she showed that the stress was eating her up from the inside. I was sorry when I asked about Walt. The look of guilt on her face when she told me where I could find him was heartbreaking. By the time I thanked her for her help and she closed the door, tears were streaming down her face. I almost tried to say something reassuring, but decided I didn't know the situation, so I just continued with what I was doing. I found Walt where she said. He was in a room in a real rundown motel right off the highway. Even girls didn't bring clients here for money, but apparently it was a cheap refuge. I knocked on the door. I was shocked when the door was opened by a disheveled Volt. He was wearing a dirty alcohol tank top and a pair of cargo shorts that were 5 sizes too big. He stepped away from the door like a vampire who might be killed by daylight. Jacko, what the hell are you doing here? I tried to talk to you at home, but I was redirected here. His face saddened as he looked at me. Barry got to you, didn't he? Damn, I should have warned you earlier. Come in, man. Damn, I should have risked jail time to warn you in front of Barry. I entered the room that served as Volt's home. In the center of the room stood a sagging single bed, flanked on one side by a shabby sofa and on the other by a small table and 2 rickety chairs. Jacko, part of what is happening to you is my fault. How the hell can this be your fault, Walt? You left before Barry started his games with me. Listen, let me tell you a story, Jacko. I knew from the first time Barry met my Marion that he wanted her. There's something about this guy. He must do such things. A woman doesn't even have to be beautiful. I worked for Barry for 12 years. When I got there was a guy in your place named Jarvis. Jarvis and I were almost the entire team along with Jane. Jarvis married a girl from Humble. She wasn't much to look at, but Jarvis loved her. At a bank Christmas party one day, Barry tried to seduce Jarvis' wife. I left before all this started, but then I heard everything. Jarvis almost sent Barry to the hospital. When we returned to work the following Monday, Jarvis was gone and Barry was still bruised. Barry brought in Hank Shaw and then replaced Jarvis with some student. I don't remember the name of the guy who replaced Jarvis, but I know Barry got to his wife and the guy quit. He was replaced by a guy named Steve Harkin. A year later, Steve left and you replaced Steve. I heard Barry got to Steve's wife. Barry somehow found a way to get guys' wives to have sex with him without them getting slapped like Jarvis did. Unfortunately, I soon learned how he did it. Right after Hank quit, Barry called me into his office and told me I messed up with the ad. He spent the entire morning trying to convince our client not to fire us and to fix the situation. He said he would discuss my future over dinner later. I was supposed to bring my wife and meet him at a local hotel. The bastard invited herself to our house for dinner. By the way, which ad did you ruin? A. M. Motors. I accidentally indicated the wrong price for the car in the ad. It's funny, but I don't even remember changing the ad. The alarm bells rang in my head again. So here it is. Barry told Marion he wouldn't fire me if she agreed to cuckold me. He told her that without my work, we would not survive. For Black, for example, he slept with her 3 times a week. One night, I met Joan by chance. I told her that Barry has my wife. I didn't know they were exchanging partners. The next evening, Barry came and told me that his wife had told him about our meeting. He then told Marion to stop taking contraceptives. He said my punishment for trying to break up his marriage would be that I would raise him to be a bastard. Another option he suggested was to have sex with her immediately after he left. That morning in his office, I told him his shit had gone on too long. He told me he would decide when it was over. He told me that as soon as he gets Marion pregnant, he will go after your wife. You know the rest. I'm living in this hole while I'm divorcing my wife. I don't know where to go from here. Have you divorced Marion? I asked. Not yet. I think I can hurt her more if I don't divorce her and don't pay her alimony. I wish I had evidence to accuse me of treason. When I left Walt 10 minutes later, he was happier. I told him I'd be in touch. I told him enough about my plan to encourage him, but not enough that it would fall apart if Barry found out. I felt pretty good as I took a random route to my house. It was early in the day, and I didn't want to be home when Lynn arrived. As I turned onto the main street, I saw a familiar sight. I say familiar, even though I've never been there before. However, I saw a picture of this place all the time I worked for Barry. A large cartoon sign that said, AM. Motors beckoned me. I pulled into the parking lot and was immediately attacked by 4 persistent salesmen. A tall guy with a twirler mustache and a funny 10-gallon hat surged forward, easily outpacing the others with flapping ties. How can I help? He asked in an accent so thick it must have been fake. My name is Sam Colt. Which of these beauties can I offer you today? Sam Colt? Are you joking? No wonder people think Texans are idiots, I thought as he shook my hand. Well, Sam, I was wondering what I need to do to get into the drawing of $500. Oh, damn, son. We don't play 500. We never give away less than $5,000. You can participate for free by simply agreeing to phone calls, emails, and newsletter subscriptions. Or you can buy a car and get 1 ticket for every $1,000 you spend. At 17:30, I found myself in my office. Now I knew that I had been set up. I was furious and looking for evidence to destroy Barry. I wanted to contact the two previous guys that Barry did this to. I looked through all the personnel files and found the two I was looking for. Steve Embry and Kenny Lawrence were easy to find by contacting their college aluminum groups. I didn't care about leaving an electronic trail because I was using Barry's computer. I looked at my watch and saw that it was a little after 6. I knew the cleaners would arrive at 9, so I had time. I opened some financial files and started looking into Barry's accounting. I was looking for receipts from AM Motors. I found records of every other client paying us, but from AM Motors had nothing. I was busily poring over Barry's computer for information when I heard someone ask, "Found anything interesting?" I turned around and saw the icy blue eyes of Amy Stewart. I was caught red-handed. I was in the office after office hours, using my boss's computer and had confidential files. I was completely confused. The expression on Amy's face was impossible to read. I didn't know if she'd give me away or sleep with me on Barry's desk. Then, without realizing what I was doing, I opened up and laid out all my depths. I told her all about how Barry cuckolded me and how he ruined several marriages. As I tried to calm down, she rephrased her question. "Have you found anything to destroy this bastard?" Amy and I left the office before the cleaners arrived and went to a small place near her house for dinner. We exchanged information and she told me her life story. By the time she finished, I had learned things that changed the scope of what I had planned. Now I have a partner in crime. BM and Sons didn't mean what I thought it meant. It was Burkhardt, Markovitz and Sons. Jefferson Burkhardt and Jacob Markovitz opened an advertising agency in the 70s. Jefferson's son and Jacob's two sons worked there when they reached working age. After graduating from college, son Dennis Burkhardt decided he didn't want to work in advertising and joined the Air Force. Jacob's eldest son joined the firm, and the youngest decided to try other endeavors. 5 years later, Jacob's youngest son was arrested for drug trafficking. During the trial, Jacob's health began to deteriorate. He soon left BM and Sons and was succeeded by his eldest son. Meanwhile, after some dirty political games and bribery of judges, Jacob's youngest son was released to return to his legitimate business, which was allegedly being used as a front for bringing substances into the Houston area. Jefferson now ran the agency with Jacob's son, Barry. Barry changed his last name from Markovitz to Masters to avoid publicity over his brother's dealings. One day, Barry approached Jefferson and told him that he had screwed up the ad and that he had spent 2 days kissing ass and fixing the situation so he wouldn't lose a big client, and used the mistake to put Jefferson out of business. Jefferson's daughter, Margie, married a man named Peter Stewart. Margie and Peter had a daughter named Amy. "So Barry's been doing this shit for a long time, huh?" "Yes, he has been doing this for a long time. My grandfather admitted that he messed up the ad, but that's still no reason for Barry to act like that." "Let me guess. The announcement was for AM Motors." "Yes, it is. You know who owns AM Motors?" "Alan Markovitz," I said. I didn't know he and Barry were brothers, but I knew they were in cahoots. AM does not pay anything other than the cost of materials for their advertising. Amy continued to tell me how often Barry asked her out on dates or to dinner. She turned him down every time, and she could tell he was angry. "I think that's why he made me stop working so closely with you, Billy." After we exchanged all the information, we made a plan and called it a night. I returned home after midnight and looked into Lynn's room. She slept, clutching my old pillow to her, as if she was hugging her. I didn't feel sorry for her at all. I felt better knowing I wasn't the only one standing up to Barry. Amy was grateful that I had revealed so much and that I had found a way to get back at him. She imagined putting up with his crap for several more years before she had the strength to overthrow him. I got an extension until Thursday night. Barry told me to tell Lynn that he was sorry, but he had an important meeting and would be out all weekend. "Call her yourself, you bastard," I thought to myself as he left the office. I came home that night and mowed the lawn and then worked in the garage. When I got into the shower, Lynn was wearing a new negligee. "Do you like it?" she asked me. I laughed and said, "You're wasting your time. Your lover is busy today." "You could use this," she said without missing a beat. I laughed again. "What's so funny?" she asked. "You think I want someone else's leftovers?" This is quite a commotion. "What do you mean by other people's leftovers? I'm still your wife, so it's yours. Didn't you forget about the vile bastard who was supposed to sleep with you tonight? The same bastard you decided to break up with because humiliating me was so funny. Go to hell and die. I don't want anything to do with your rotten reputation." She went into the bedroom, and I went to take a shower. She must have been angry because I didn't hear her toy until almost midnight. The next morning, Amy approached me at work. She smiled maliciously and said, "Guess who's working on the AM Motors commercial today? Is it bigger than a bread box? Funny. I want you to check this when I'm done. I'm sure Barry has a plan for me. Did you know he asked me to go to Florida with him for the weekend?" I shook my head. "Yes, I told him that I already have plans." He got upset and then said that the AM account Motors are now mine. The bastard cannot win you otherwise, so he has to demonstrate power. He just has to hope you don't quit. "Oh, I won't quit. I have plans," she said, winking and returning to her cube. After everyone left for the day, I checked Amy's work as she requested. She looked like all the other AM ads, Motors that we printed. I made copies of the information sheets and took photos of her ad. "Do you have plans for the weekend?" she asked me. "Just avoid your wife," I said. "And you?" "No plans. I have an extra room if you want to avoid it completely. I'm not offering you my body, but we could have a nice weekend." We really had a good time. My fun began when I ignored Lynn's protests as I packed my bag. I even put my work clothes away for Monday in case. I decided not to go home until Monday night. It sounded like an echo in our house. "Where are you going to be?" "Not here." If I knew other languages, I would tell her more if she didn't know them either. My grandfather taught me a few swear words in Polish, but I didn't feel like swearing. She cried when I left the house. I know some might call me a creep, but I couldn't be with a woman who took pride in humiliating me. I actually planned to watch all the security footage. I wanted to see the expression on her face when she called me on my mobile and found out that it was left on the sofa. Amy and I had a great weekend. When I arrived at her place, she came out with an overnight bag and told me to drive. After a few blocks, I asked, "Do we have a specific destination, or are we just running away?" She laughed. "Oh yes, we are going to a friend's house. They have a house on Lake Conroe." Friends had a wonderful house. I knew that if Lynn saw it, she would want to sell our house and buy one just like it. She complained a couple of times that we didn't live in the woodlands or the heights, but we had a nice house, so she eventually stopped dreaming so much. We spent Saturday on their boat. I had a few beers with Tony, trying not to stare at Amy and Katie sunbathing in bikinis. When Amy wanted to go water skiing, I think we were both hoping for swimsuit trouble. That evening, Tony hosted a typical Texas barbecue. There was a lot of food and beer. A few other friends showed up, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. Amy introduced me as a friend to everyone she knew. Tony and Katie also introduced me as Amy's friend. I loved it when at one point one of the girls pulled Amy aside and told her that she shouldn't let me go because I was a good guy. I saw a thoughtful look on her face, but tried not to let her see that I was looking at her. On Friday night, we each had our own room. Since Tony and Kathy had invited another couple who were visiting from Baytown, they asked if it would be okay for me to sleep on the couch so they wouldn't have to make the long trek back. It wasn't a burden to me. If I were at home, I would still sleep on the couch. Katie left me to find me a pillow and blanket. I looked at the sofa and realized that it was the same sofa that was in my living room. I heard Katie talking to someone. I couldn't understand what she was saying or who she was talking to, but I definitely heard her say, "Okay, good night." I heard the bedroom door close. I sat and waited for Katie to return, but Amy came out instead. "Hi, I have a full-size bed." There's no point in you sleeping on the couch, Billy. I trust you to behave like a gentleman. I looked at her and realized that there was no point in arguing, so I went with her to the bedroom. She wore a long t-shirt to sleep, and I didn't know if she was wearing panties or shorts underneath. I was wearing shorts, so I wasn't too worried about inappropriate contact. I trust you to act like a gentleman. These words rang through my head when I woke up this morning, hugging Amy, my hand accidentally holding her right breast. I tried to free my hand, but she grabbed it. "Not yet, Billy," she said sleepily. She sighed and pressed herself even closer to me. "I cannot wait." Wait what? I wanted to ask, but she had already fallen asleep again. When I woke up later, no one was next to me. I just lay there for a few minutes, enjoying her scent on the pillow next to me. I got up and went to the shower. I took care of my arousal. I found that everyone on the terrace was enjoying bacon, eggs, and coffee. I saw a big smile on Amy's face as I sat down across from her. At breakfast, we had a little conversation. I was a little embarrassed and continued to catch Amy's glances. We left home early in the day. I thanked Tony and Kathy for their hospitality, and Kathy said she was sure we'd see each other again. I chalked it up to their kindness and thought nothing more of it. We chatted casually as we returned home. We have revised our plan. I was confident that Barry would make his move on Monday, and we discussed fallback options. If he tries to force me to have one-on-one sex with him, I'll just make him fire me. In this case, I will also throw my bombs. I won't leave you alone. I know you won't leave me, Billy, she said, smiling at me. I looked at her sideways when she said this. She smiled in such a way that I couldn't understand exactly what she meant. Then it dawned on me that she had started calling me Billy. I tried to remember the first time she called me that, but I liked the way it sounded. We returned to Amy's apartment, and I carried her bag to the door. "You can stay here tonight if you want, Billy. I promise not to bite." The choice between staying with Amy and going home to listen to Lynn's ravings was an easy one. Amy looked surprised when I brought my work clothes. "We were so sure that I would let you stay overnight on Sunday," she asked. I laughed. Well, I was hopeful, but I was also willing to get a hotel room so I wouldn't have to listen to her nonsense. I had planned to sleep on Amy's couch, but she wouldn't agree. "I have a double bed and I only use half of it. We slept together last night and nothing happened, so we can do it again." Her face took on a thoughtful expression for a moment, but when she saw me looking at her, she smiled. "I know you're still married, and I don't want you to stoop to her level. You're too good a person, Billy, but I will also admit that I loved waking up in your arms this morning." We slept in the same clothes as the night before. I'm wearing shorts, and she's wearing a long t-shirt, but we woke up in a different position. I woke up to find her with her face pressed to my chest and her leg thrown over my waist. One of her hands lay on mine breasts, and the other grabbed me. I felt like I was in heaven. I wanted this moment to last forever, with the scent of her hair filling my nostrils and her warm, soft body hugging mine so well. I realized that Barry had taken much more from me than just my wife. She was my friend and companion. I wasn't sure what I would do next, but I knew my life with Lynn was over. I will never be able to look at her and not feel humiliated and betrayed. Amy was wonderful, but I didn't think she could have any feelings for a guy 7 years older and without a job. I dozed off until Amy's alarm rang. We got up and took turns going to the bathroom. I showered first and got dressed while she was in the shower. I planned to get to the office before Jane or anyone else. As I was about to leave, Amy came out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her head and a large robe on. I felt a little awkward telling her I'll see you at work. There was something in her look, but I wasn't sure what it was. She smiled and told me to hurry up. I arrived at the office 15 minutes before everyone else and completed my tasks in 5 minutes. Then I put down the coffee and sat down at my desk. Within half an hour, everyone was already there. Amy gave me a strange look as she walked past her cube to her desk. Barry, of course, came last. He didn't say anything to anyone as soon as he entered his office. After lunch, he called Amy to his place. From my desk, I couldn't see or hear anything from Barry's office. 20 minutes later, Amy returned to her desk. I didn't see her face, so I couldn't tell what mood she was in. I noticed Barry had a cheerful walk when he left at 4. Everyone else left by 5, and I stayed another 10 minutes to do a couple of things and then went home. Lynn wasn't home when I arrived. I loaded all my clothes from the weekend into the washing machine and then went to my office. I checked the security cameras and saw that Lynn had not left until the morning when she went to work. I deleted all the videos of Lynn pleasuring herself. I went back and listened to the audio on the 2 videos of Lynn using the phone. The first conversation was with her Aunt Lily. She didn't say anything about our problems, so I moved on to the next one. I didn't know who she was talking to, but I heard her say, "What are you talking about?" And after a pause, she added, "Oh, this is going to be so hot. I need a hot night." I heard Lynn come home as I was finishing up, so I opened up my web browser and pretended to be completely engrossed in an article. For a few minutes, I felt that head look at me from the threshold. "Can we talk?" "You can," I told her. "I have nothing to tell you. I missed you this weekend." "I didn't miss you." "Why do you have to be like that?" "Do I really need to remind you? You ruined our marriage, and you think I'm wrong to be a little annoyed about it." "I didn't destroy our marriage. Barry and I are making our marriage more fulfilling. If you want, I'll talk him out of making you wear a cage." "When did you become such a dumbass? The only thing that makes me happy is that I know what the damn bitch is only get married. Get out of my office. The only time we need to see each other or even confess to each other is while Barry is living out your sexual fantasies. Besides, I don't need or want to be reminded of your stinking ass, and this cage is just like you. I don't need that to maintain my chastity, because when you 2 scumbags are fighting, you won't be even remotely aroused." As she left my office in tears, I received a text message from Amy. At least something could make me smile. Her text was short. "On. Are you leaving here on time? Barry asked me on Tuesday. I have some business to take care of, so I'll be half an hour late," I told him. Amy wasn't at work, so my extra half hour didn't seem suspicious to him. "Fine. I'll go to the Royal Fork for lunch, but I expect you and Lynn to be ready when I get there. And Jacko, ready." Once everyone had left, I packed up a box of my personal belongings, wrote my resignation letter, and placed it on Jane's desk. I took one last look around and realized that I wouldn't miss this place at all. I returned home to find Barry already there. I walked in and Lynn tried to kiss me, but I stopped her. She was wearing a short silk robe, and I could see that she was wearing stockings underneath. "Where have you been?" I was worried. Barry sat on the couch, sipping a glass of wine. "I've been waiting 10 minutes, Jacko. A person who wants to keep his happy home and job should not keep the guarantor of both waiting. But have a glass of wine. We are expecting a special guest." I saw the look Barry and Lynn gave each other, then went to the kitchen and got myself a beer. Barry's face twisted with displeasure. I think he was about to say something when the doorbell rang. Lynn ran to open it, and Barry smiled from all the teeth. I heard Lynn greet someone and heard the door close. I looked up as Lynn and Amy entered the room. "Aw, Amy, I'm so glad you decided to save your job," Barry said boastfully. "You see, Lynn, Amy is just as incompetent as Jacko. She completely failed my biggest account, and now she will be joining us. Jacko, you will enjoy it even though you don't deserve it. See, I'm going to fuck every single one of these beauties in front of you." Lynn suddenly looked worried. As beautiful as she was, she paled in comparison to Amy, and Amy was 10 years younger. She also saw the way Barry looked at Amy. "Well, let's start this hot evening." When Lynn called me Jacko, I saw Amy's face get annoyed. Barry seemed a little disappointed that Lynn insisted on being first. I know he was dying to have Amy. As we all headed to the bedroom, I looked at my phone and saw the text messages I wanted. Right before we entered the bedroom, Amy asked where the bathroom was, and I pointed it out to her. She smiled and thanked me. Then I noticed that she was carrying a small purse. I was ready to play my part in the evening's festivities. Lynn took off her robe to reveal that she was wearing only garters and stockings. I saw Barry's face light up and wanted to punch him. Despite all the pain Lynn had caused me, I still couldn't deny that she had a great body. I took off my shirt and began to unbutton my pants. "Wait until Amy sees this," I said. I spoke as if I didn't want them to hear, but in reality I wanted them to hear. Barry and Lynn's faces changed. Lynn's face went from passion to anger, and Barry's face went from passion to fear. I dropped my pants and stood there. "Well, I'm ready for my cage," I said. A new expression appeared on Barry's face. "I have something better than a cage," he said, reaching for a shopping bag that I had not noticed earlier. He pulled out a pair of black leather shorts. "You won't be able to satisfy yourself in these." He tossed me some shorts, and I started pulling them on. "Hurry up before that girl comes out of the bathroom, Jacko," Lynn hissed. "Yeah, Jacko, save yourself some embarrassment," Barry interjected. I just couldn't leave this unanswered. "You should know all about a little shame," I told him. His eyes flashed lightning. He was about to say something when the bathroom door opened and Amy came out. Amy looked amazing. "Barry, come here and get me. It's been a long time since there's been a real man," Lynn said. I could hardly contain my laughter. She did everything she could to get things back to normal. Barry finally snapped out of his thoughts and lowered his pants. As Barry climbed onto the bed and began to play with Lynn's breasts, I leaned against the windowsill. Lynn was drawn into the process, but Barry did it through force. He kept looking back at Amy. I turned to see Amy looking at me with a curious smile. I winked at her, and her smile grew wider. On the bed, Barry and Lynn began making love harder. Then real chaos began. A series of small explosions were heard from outside. Living in an area with oil refineries, you can sometimes hear explosions. When the sixth sounded, Amy screamed, "What was that?" I grabbed my pants, quickly pulled them over my leather shorts, and ran down the hallway. I opened the front door and screamed, "Damn it, Barry, your car is trash." All four tires were flat, and the windshield and rear window were covered in cracks like spider webs. Of course, there was no sign of what caused it. Barry ran down my hallway naked and stopped when he got to the door. I didn't know if the destroyed Lexus stopped him or if he realized he was naked. But it didn't matter because I kicked him in the back, and he flew across my porch and onto the sidewalk. Then I closed the door. I heard his screams, but I didn't care. At this time, Lynn came out of the corridor. At least she had time to throw on a robe before coming to sort things out. "Where's Barry?" she asked. Then she noticed that there were two more people in the living room. I let them in when I was yelling about Barry's car. "Who are these people?" "Jacko." "What's happening?" "Are you Lynn Jackswensky?" asked a woman in a business suit. When Lynn nodded, the woman asked to see Lynn's ID. Lynn took out her driver's license and showed it to the woman. The woman handed her a stack of documents and said, "You have been served with legal notice." Lynn's face turned pale. She looked at the papers in her hands in bewilderment. Amy came out of the hallway with Barry's clothes in a shopping bag. She put on the clothes in which she came to me in the evening. The procedural agent said goodbye to me and walked out the door. I walked outside and immediately looked at Barry. Barry tried to hide on my porch. People gathered to see what was going on and laughed at Barry. The procedural agent approached Barry and asked, "Are you Barry Masters?" Amy went out onto the porch. "Yes, it's him. Here's his ID." The agent handed him a stack of documents and said, "You have been served with legal notice." I thought she laughed as she left. Amy dropped the bag of his clothes next to him. "You've done something wrong, Jacko," Barry hissed. "I'll squeeze you for this." "Fuck you, Barry. This procedural agent saw you run out and fall. Read the papers, buddy. You're in more trouble. You're fired, Jacko. Don't come to work tomorrow." "Fuck you, Barry. Jane already has my resignation letter." I was about to say something else when the police arrived. Barry yelled at them that I beat him up. No one else corroborated his claims, so all they did was give him a ticket for indecent exposure. I was upset that the tow truck took Barry's car before he had a chance to read the paperwork they handed him. I went back inside to find Lynn sobbing on the couch. "Where are you going to go, Lynn?" "Go? I I don't understand. Where are you going to go? I don't want you here, and I'm not going to leave." "Bill, dear, I don't want a divorce. I love only you. Unfortunately, you don't love me. If I had, we wouldn't be here. You got horny thinking about ways to humiliate me and slept with Barry. Our marriage ended at that very moment. But you will lose everything," Barry told us. "Barry is full of crap, Lynn. This house is in my name, so it's mine. I filed for divorce due to infidelity and cruelty. My lawyer says that with what I provided him, I shouldn't have much to lose in this divorce. We have drawn up documents about the incompatibility of characters if you just sign them and settle everything quickly. They offer you 30% of our assets, and I do not take on your debts. Cruelty? How can you claim cruelty? You sleeping with that bastard Barry in front of me and humiliating me is cruelty. I have it all on video. I also have videos of you and Tiny Tim when I'm not around. But you'll need my income now that Barry fired you. It's none of your business anymore. Now, if you need help, I'll take your things to the car, but you need to hurry. Amy and I are going to study on the couch for a while." Lynn ran screaming to her car and drove away. Over the following weeks, she slowly moved her belongings out. She moved in with one of her coworkers who needed a roommate to help with expenses. We split our assets 7,030. Luckily, I didn't have to use the video against her. The only thing she asked was that I take the furniture. I saw Lynn a couple of years later. She gained weight, but still looked good. She had a man on her arm, and they were pushing a stroller. I don't think she saw me, and that was normal for me. I found all of Barry's former employees. Of the 7 I spoke with, 4 joined my sexual harassment class action lawsuit. Both Steve and Kenny were more than enthusiastic. Even Jane joined in. Walt and Marion also signed on. Marion did not ask for a full share, but wanted to testify. When Joan realized that Barry would be severely punished, she tried to file for divorce, hoping to get her half before he was hanged and milked. When it was pointed out to her that she was complicit in Barry's philandering, she was told that the division of assets would follow the settlement of the harassment case. During the sexual assault trial, investigators found inconsistencies in Barry's records. When they started digging deeper, they found large amounts of unexplained income for BM and Sons and AM, Motors, and also discovered a large amount of substances. Alan fled abroad the day before he could be arrested. Barry was arrested right outside the courthouse. Joan was later arrested and was found to be in possession of 5 ounces upon arrest substances. After the lawsuits were settled, the government took everything that was left of Barry, Joan, and his brother. We all received $200,000 from the lawsuit. Barry received 30 years, Joan received 10. Alan was later found murdered in a dumpster in Medellin, Colombia. The night Lynn got the papers, I told her that Amy and I were going to have sex on her couch. I didn't really intend to do this, but I knew that the thought of us getting her white couch dirty would be like salt in the wound for her. Amy knew in advance that I was going to tell her this. I wanted to sit down, but my leather shorts didn't allow me to do that, so I leaned on the back of the sofa. Whatever had sustained me up to this point had left me. The weight of it all suddenly came crashing down on me, and I wanted to curl up in a ball and let the world pass me by. I didn't have a wife and didn't have a job. I expected to win in court, but who knew how long it would take? The future, which seemed so bright just a moment ago, suddenly became dark and threatening. I stood there crying when Amy hugged me. I was embarrassed to cry in front of Amy, but she didn't seem to care. "It's over, Billy. She won't be able to hurt you anymore." After a while, I felt better and noticed that Amy had put her corset back on. "When did you have time to change clothes?" I asked. "While you were kicking that vile bitch out. Do you like it?" I almost said that it was wrong to show me what I couldn't have, but instead Freudian slip blurted out, "Do you like it?" "Currently, no. It reminds me that I'm still in those stupid shorts." "I can help with that," she said. I half expected her to get dressed. Instead, she started unbuckling my belt and pulling down my pants. Confusion must have been written all over my face. I want it, Billy. I have liked you from the first day I met you. When Jane told me about what Barry was doing, I knew I'd end up with you. Last weekend was the best weekend of my life, and I want all my weekends to be like that. Well, at least the parts where we wake up together. I had no idea that you felt this way about me. Did Jane know? How the hell did Jane know? She smiled. Jane is my aunt. She's married to my Uncle Dennis. She started working for my grandfather and Barry's father before she met my uncle. She changed her last name in her personal records, so Barry never put two and two together. Volt called her after leaving and told her to keep an eye on you. She listened through the intercom when Barry invited himself to dinner. That's why she had access to Barry's passwords so easily. She also told me what a great guy you are, she said while kissing me. Before I knew it, the leather shorts were on the floor next to Amy's panties. So even though I thought I had lied to Lynn about us having sex on the couch, Amy made sure I was honest. When we were tired, we went back to her house to sleep. Neither of us wanted to sleep in the bed where Barry had Lynn. Amy and I used our winnings from the lawsuit to buy a house next door to Tony and Katie. I hired a company to manage my home. They maintain order and provide good tenants. Amy didn't mind me keeping it. She saw it as a kind of insurance policy that she never intended to use. Amy and I became co-owners of a large advertising agency. Her uncle Dennis invested in this with us. This was the kind of place Barry dreamed of in his wet dreams. Walt and Jane work there too. Jane just likes to do things. Amy and I share responsibilities for day-to-day work. We are never in the office at the same time. When one of us is at work, the other is at home with our 2-year-old son, Jefferson David, named after his great-grandfather and my father, and our 5-year-old daughter, Sadie Marie, who is named after our mothers. The best part of it all is waking up hugging the love of my life. Her body has only improved since giving birth, and she never makes me doubt her love for me. I really can't ask for more. End. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.